Hello, in this video, we're going to look at how ChatGPT can help us with searching for the countries that we could move to. Now, you can use other solutions like DeepSeek, and Google has something, and Microsoft has something. But I've worked with ChatGPT, so we're going to work through that in this example. The approach that we cover here is something that you can use to dive into any country. If you already know where you want to go, you can use this to dive into that country. So, some of the things people look at when they're looking to move to a country or even a town or a city within a country, if it's applicable, it's visa availability, the fitness, how it fits well with you, and the financial considerations that apply in that situation. So, we'll begin by looking at how to use ChatGPT for visa availability and then for fit. By the end of this video, you should be able to use the tools to research places of your choice. So, with that, let's take a look at visa availability requirement. And that's really comes down to a few things. Ancestry and descent. If you have that, that makes a huge help in terms of getting that visa. Someone offers you a job, that would be a wonderful thing. If you have some unique skills the country needs, that would work. And then, of course, if you go in as a student, sign up at a college for education. And then, of course, you qualify by having external income that you can show supports you or assets. So those are some of the tools that we look at. So let's dive directly into ChatGPT. Here we are looking at the ChatGPT screen. This is a pretty standard screen, and this is the free account. And with that, if we start the process, we could ask it a question to broaden the situation for us. So, what types of visas are available for a US citizen who wants to reside in France? We're using a specific example here. So, in that country, it outlines what kinds of visas are available. Now, remember that ChatGPT and other systems do hallucinate. So, this is a good indicator, but we'll have to back it up and check with the embassy if you really want to go forward with this. So, there is the long stay visa up here, and uh, and then there's the long stay visa spelled out here, more than 90 days and up to a year. And then there's a work visa if someone was willing to give you a job offer in France. And then there are talent for skilled workers, etc. down here. There we are. And then there's a student visa. This is if you enroll in a college in or educational establishment in France, you can get a visa for a period of time, and you're allowed to work potentially up to 964 hours per year. That's almost half a year. And then looking down further, we see we've got some other options. Scrolling down so we can see what the other options are. There's the entrepreneur or self-employed visa, and that's a talent passport. And then there is the visitor visa. And you'll see right here where it describes and it says it's potentially for retirees too, as long as you can prove you have sufficient funds and private health insurance, and you can't work under those visas. And then if you have family, then there's the family reunification visa and a retirement visa, and all of this directly out of ChatGPT. Now, clearly, we need to check this against the embassy rules, but this is a great place to start and get a feel for whether you qualify. Let's dive down further. So let's say, please expand on the conditions for a retirement visa. I'm more in the retirement category, so I want to understand what that entails. And it says they don't really have a retirement visa, they have a long stay visa. And we've got to show we have enough money, and that's about 1,500 to 2,500 euros per month per person. Now, euro is close enough to a dollar that for approximation purposes, we can consider them equal. That's not exactly true, but it's close. And that income can be Social Security, pensions, other retirement incomes, savings and assets, etc. Now, you need to have private health insurance. Now, getting private health insurance in Europe is quite different from health insurance in the US. A, it's much cheaper. I've known people get it for $200 a month, and that's full coverage. And then in this case, after living there for 3 months, you're eligible for the public healthcare system. And then, of course, you need to prove that you've got a place to live. And that can be a rental, or if you have a relative or family member, they need to write a letter saying that you're staying with them. And under this visa, no work is allowed. But one of the things you need is a police clearance. And we cover that in another video about exit readiness. Find out about how to get that before you leave. And then, of course, here are the renewal conditions. And at some point after 5 years, you potentially could become a citizen. Let's look a little deeper into this. Please list the countries in the US, Central and South America, and Asia that have the lowest income requirements to qualify for a retirement type visa. I meant to type Europe and Central and South America, but we'll go with this and see what comes up. And here it lists the countries and says what the income requirements are. You can show you've got $900 a month, you can move to Colombia. If you've got $1,000, you can move to Costa Rica. And so it goes. And looking further down, you can see Greece has a $3,500 requirement. Now, these numbers need to be validated because A, ChatGPT might be looking at outdated data, but it again gives you a range of what those numbers might be. Please do the same, but let's look at Europe, the one we missed earlier. And now it gives us the numbers for Europe. And that is Portugal is 1,200 euros, France is 1,500 euros, Greece is 3,500 euros, Ireland is 4,200 euros. And I recall seeing other numbers on other sites, but using these metrics, we can dive down into the countries we like. Look at Malta at 50,000, that's about 4,167 euros a month, and Latvia and Austria. So using ChatGPT in this way, you can get a sense of what the income requirements are for the visa, what types of visas are available, what are the requirements for the type of visa that you want before you start diving into the specifics with the embassy. Remember that this data can change, and it needs to be current information that you're looking at before you make the final commitment. So with that, let's dive into taking a look at other things like healthcare. So in this search, we're going to start a different way. We're going to ask it what are reliable data sources for metrics related to healthcare and quality by country. And at this point, ChatGPT outlines a set of possible data sources. Now, each data source, like World Health Organization, etc., may rank it differently, but at least you know what those sources are, and you could either look into that specific source and dive into healthcare data, or you could take the whole set and ask ChatGPT to go back and look at these data sources and rank it for us in some way. So let's go ahead and do that. So using these sources, please rank the countries from best downward for the top 20 countries. So we're asking them to use this data source and give us the top 20 sorted. And now ChatGPT is changed a little bit. It's giving us two options. It's trying to figure out how we like our answers. So it's going to give us option number one on the left and option number two on the right. And then once we've read it and you like one of them, you select it, all future responses will follow that model. Response one's completed, and response two is spooling. Interestingly, response one says top 10, although we asked for 20. Response two is giving us 20, and it says how it's doing it. It's based on quality of care, accessibility, efficiency, and healthcare outcomes. So looking down, we see Norway, and Norway didn't make it to the other list on the left. That's interesting. That's one country that didn't make it on the left. All the other countries seem to be on the left. So Netherlands, Australia, United Kingdom, Germany, New Zealand, Sweden, Switzerland, Canada, and scrolling down a little further, where are we? Here we are. The United States is 20th on this list. So it's interesting that these are two different sorting lists because the data sources are different and what they're measuring is different. So with that in mind, we need to be aware that it's a relative ranking we're looking at. There's no precise ranking for any of this. So response number one said Australia, Netherlands, United Kingdom, Germany, New Zealand, Sweden, etc. And you can see Australia is on the list on the right. We've got Netherlands, United Kingdom, and Germany, and we can see there's Netherlands, number two on the right, Germany, number five on the right, United Kingdom, number four on the right, then New Zealand, Sweden, and France. Let's scroll down a little bit. There's New Zealand, Sweden, and that's Switzerland. And let's scroll down a little more. We see France is right here. And then there's Canada and the United States. And there's Canada. And there's the United States. Now, looking at this data, my preference is this one, the longer response, even though it's a different sort. So I'll go ahead and select that, and it'll present that data as a single answer now in the ChatGPT screen. It's basically the same answer. From this point on, it'll answer questions using this style. So quality of care, accessibility, efficiency, equity, and healthcare outcomes. And the sources include the OECD and the Commonwealth Fund. And you can scroll down here or you can freeze the screen of the countries you're interested in to get a better sense. And you can dive down into a specific country in more detail. So we'll dive down into France. And within France, we're asking, are there regional differences within France? And if so, explain or elaborate. And it says, yes, there are regional differences in healthcare quality, access, and availability. And this is due to population density, resources, and availability. And you can see the shorter wait times in Paris, Lyon, Marseille, Bordeaux, and Toulouse. Rural areas like Brittany, Normandy, Occitanie, etc., have fewer hospitals, longer wait times, and there are medical deserts in some regions. Now, wait times for treatment change depending on where you are, and then emergency care cost differences and specialist availability. So, if you're looking at a particular place in France or in any country, you need to dive down and understand the specifics of the location you're selecting in terms of healthcare coverage. Although France has one of the best healthcare systems in the world, there are regional disparities, and you might want to consider that before you pick a particular location. Let's go ahead and probe a little deeper. We're going to ask about a specific city, Lyon. So let's say, where does Lyon fall in terms of healthcare? And what are its unique attributes? This is if we were looking at going to Lyon. So you could type in the city or location of your choice. And it ranks Lyon as one of the best or second best places in France for healthcare. And it says why. It's a major medical hub for research, has world-class hospitals, uh, strong selection of specialists, research and innovation, accessibility is good, and emergency and trauma care is excellent. So this gives me information on Lyon, except that it could be any town that you wanted to look into. And moving on to the next tier, which is fitness, moving on to crime and safety, I'm saying please rank the 20 safest countries. Notice we didn't ask for sources this time. We're just asking it for output. So you're going to get some interesting output here. It says, here they are. It says the Global Peace Index, it's picked one. It ranks these countries as the top safest countries. Iceland, Denmark, Ireland, New Zealand, Austria, Singapore, etc., all the way down to Hungary. And I noticed that the US is not on that list. Nomeo is a different source. This is perception based. It's perception based by crowdsourcing almost in terms of what people feel. And this is how it ranks: Andorra, UAE, Qatar, Taiwan, Oman, etc., working our way down to Finland. And again, we're not seeing the US. And it does spell out that discrepancies arise because you're using different sources. Now, it says here we've hit the free limit for ChatGPT 4.0, and 4.0 has a higher level of reasoning capability. And what happens is when you continue, it switches to a lower level model, which is good enough for us. So, what data sources are there for crime statistics by country? Now we approach it a different way, and we have the sources for the data. And you could go into a specific source and dig within that source, or you could say, using these sources, go ahead and rank it for us. So now it's broader than the two sources that we used in the beginning. When we asked it, what are the safest? It picked two. And now the 20 safest are, by ranking, Iceland, New Zealand, Portugal, and it ranks them: Denmark, Slovenia, for Canada, Finland, Austria, Norway, Sweden, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Then Andorra, and another list had Andorra at the top, but here it's 18, Hong Kong. And there's this Numio ranking, and then there's Hong Kong and a general ranking. And to understand this, we say for comparative purposes, how does the US rank? It's great to know this, but it's more helpful to know where we stand so we understand what we're looking at. And it gives us a number of options. On the Global Peace Index, we're 129 out of 163. On the Perception Index by Numeo, we're 62 out of 141. And then it goes on to explain the key factors affecting those rankings, which are violent crime, gun ownership, police violence, and social unrest. And it says that US is generally safe compared to many countries worldwide. It's just lower than a number of European, Asian, and Pacific nations. So, to understand this better, the US number is potentially misleading. Let's ask it within the US, please rank the top 10 safest cities, beginning with the safest. So, this gives us some benchmark. Let's say we live in a town. We might know what these towns are like and see, how does that feel? So, apparently, the safest, according to these rankings, is Naperville, Illinois. It consistently ranks as the safest city in the US. Low crime, high police presence, and strong community programs. There's Irvine, Murrieta, Fremont, Cary, Plano, Brentwood, Overland, Gilbert, and Scottsdale. So these are based on violent crime rates. Let's do a reference check. Let's pick a city. Where does Minneapolis, Atlanta, Denver, and Salt Lake City rank? And you could pick any city that you like, or perhaps the town you live in, to get a sense of where that ranks. And in this case, it says Minneapolis ranks 150 to 200, depending on the source. Atlanta between 160 and 190, depending on the source. Denver 90 to 150, and Salt Lake 100 to 150. So those comparative metrics help us better understand the data we're getting from other sources. And so Salt Lake is safe because of these attributes, yeah. More moderate ranking, higher property crime, but lower violent crime. So this is pretty helpful to understand and know. So using ChatGPT, remember that ChatGPT and all of these engines hallucinate somewhat. So take this with a pinch of salt, but it's a good indicator relative to each other. Once you have the data, validate it, use reliable sources. Keep in mind that this is just a starting point, and from this, you dive into the detail to validate and verify before you take a step. So when we're screening these things, we could run analysis like these on safety, employment, healthcare, climate, culture, infrastructure, taxation, education, geography, and then, of course, the financial side and even visa. And this can take a lot of time, which is why we recommend in another video that you pick three of the top most important things from a fit perspective. On the financials, pick one or two important attributes. On the visa, the income criteria to narrow down your list. And once you've got that narrowed down list, you're pretty much ready to go. So finally, whether you're using ChatGPT, DeepSeek, or Google's system or Microsoft system, remember that there are a number of engines out there, and there's a free version and a paid version. What I would suggest is that you use the free version to get the preliminary data. Once you have that down and you're pretty clear, you've got a smaller selection, then sign up for the paid version for a month or two and dig deep into the ones you selected. Because of the additional reasoning engine, you could tell it things like, I prefer a temperate climate ranging from this to this. I like humidity to be below this, crime to be average or below average, and the immigration process to be relatively simple for somebody who's got X dollars in monthly income or Y dollars in assets. And once you do that, the system can come back and give you a list of potential destinations that might fit your need. So start with the free and then jump into the paid version for a little bit for more detail. And then once you have that, recognize that you've got hallucinations in play and make sure you validate this data with the embassy of the countries you're targeting, and perhaps even immigration attorneys. One technique you can use to get ChatGPT and other engines to be more effective is to say, imagine that you are an immigration lawyer for XYZ company, and then you pose the question. All it does is it helps ChatGPT target its search to people in that field or data sources in that field. It'll improve the output, but again, hallucinations are still in play. So, in other videos, we cover getting ready for immigration for those with assets, more on forced heirship. And that's where local laws trump any will that you might have in terms of how your assets are distributed. I hope you found this helpful, and thank you so much for watching.